You're watching ADX Live HD, powered by Jetline Systems. So what I'm going to need from you, Ken, is to sort of direct me. I have my map on the iPad here, but obviously it's not, it's the Google Earth map. So I'm going to still need sort of a heading from you to make sure I'm going in the right direction. I hope we don't get lost.
Okay.
And then, yeah.
If you
Actually,
go
Tim's
back to the
probably
main
better.
cluster of strips and pick up the track again, because the track goes
Yeah.
through Minari.
Oh, actually, you're right. That's right. It does. The green track. That's right. You know, yeah, let's do that. Let's follow the track. And then once I'm airborne, provided I don't take out some plants with me, that's exactly what I would like to talk about next is the vegetation, and if any of the vegetarian is actually, or vegetarian, excuse me, the vegetation is specific to this project, or are they more or less from the Orbx libraries? Because what I noticed at Kokoda was a species of palm tree, which is very nice, by the way. That entire grove of, I don't know if they're palm trees, but the entire grove of trees, just opposite the runway there, that looked like, yeah, they looked new. So if you guys want to go into the vegetation a little bit, and I think one of the things that stood out to me about this project first were those trees. And once I saw those trees, I think that's the first thing that blew me away, was the thought that, oh my God, this is an Orbx scenery in a tropical place. So, and then suddenly it was like, wow, this can open a lot of doors in terms of the direction that scenery development can go in, because I've become so accustomed to either the desert look, i.e. Australia, or the sort of Sierra look, which takes you sort of like into New Zealand or the Pacific Northwest, and what have you. So I'm not really accustomed to seeing palm trees in an Orbx scenery. So what can you tell us about
Everything that was made for this project was custom made for this project. We used very little of the existing Orbx libraries. We did that mainly because we wanted to keep it fairly self-contained within its folder. And obviously nothing in the Orbx libraries really was that suited for Papua New Guinea. So, you know, we remade everything from the GSE. We repainted that, and obviously Ken took the lead on all the vegetation, so I'll let him go with that. Ken?
Oh, okay. Yeah, well, basically, you know, again, Tim was throwing images of vegetation at me, and one of the hardest things to do was to find images of the tropical grasses. That was the biggest challenge. Banana trees are very prevalent there. The different types of palms. There's exotic trees, you know, yeah, with quite nice flowers and things on them. But you know, the grasses were the real hard thing, because every strip is beautifully mown by hand, by the way. That's why there's a lawnmower at every strip. But
I didn't notice that.
Yeah, there is. If you check when you land at Minari, you'll find a beautiful image of my lawnmower. It's in my garage.
Is it a riding mower?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, come on. This is, we're talking about Patrick.
That's a good point.
Right on.
This is not Pebble Beach here, right?
No, this is. So, but once you get out of the actual runway, the vegetation on either side of the runway is thick. It's like you can't walk through it. It's really machete country, and we wanted to sort of try and replicate that, but of course, every strip being on a slope, that became a nightmare, because I couldn't make one grass clump and then place thousands of them to match the slope, because the frame rate would have just, you know, dropped completely. So what we had to do was make very large clumps of grass, right? Because the sim can actually draw a very complicated model and the polygons very quickly, but individual models take almost the same amount. So if you can make a big model, it's much more efficient. So, but then again, if you make it level, then part of the model goes underground and the other part sticks up in the air. So of each of the grass models, there's about 10 separate models, one at 1 degree, one at 2 degrees, one at 3 degrees, so forth, up to about 10 degrees, so that we could match the slopes of the runways. So that's how we managed to get the the look and feel of the denseness of the vegetation around the strips. A lot of work went into making these vegetation models, and as I said, Tim, with his magnificent research abilities, just kept finding all these great pictures, you know, and we just converted them into vegetation models, and by keeping everything within our own libraries, this was also beneficial to the frame rates as well, because we weren't calling on texture sheets from other libraries, which slows the sim down. So by keeping it all contained, it was one of the methods that we managed to use to help keep the frame rates, because you need a smooth experience. It's hard enough flying in these places without a stuttering mess of a sim, you know.
Well, one of the things I noticed, and definitely vegetation, especially incorrectly modeled vegetation, and by incorrectly meaning however you code it, can definitely make or break a scenery visually, but also performance-wise. But I've actually put the counter up there. One of the things I noticed going into the sceneries is, number one, my biggest pet peeve is frame rates. That's a huge deal for me. But there are a number of sceneries out there that have achieved very high frame rates, but then it gets taken away with micro stutters. So you might still be flying in at 60 frames per second, but you're still feeling as if you're getting low frames because these stutters are appearing because of certain objects that just simply aren't very friendly with performance. So in the case with these airstrips, I don't think we've fallen at any point below 40 frames per second, and for the most part I think the average has been between 50 and 60, which is incredible. And if you guys are watching, well, you are watching obviously with the stream, and you have to keep in mind the live broadcasting software is using a great chunk of the CPU, which is killer. And then of course we have all of this modeled, and then Skype is going on, and you know, a lot of use of the internet. So with all these things sort of compounded on, and we're still in the 60s, there's no micro stutters or anything. I mean, you guys have done a splendid job, I think, in keeping in with performance, because as we all know, when it comes to FSX and P3D, the first thing people want to know is how well is it going to perform.
Exactly.
For me and Ken, performance it would have to be our number one concern at all times. We've, you know, no disrespect to anyone else, but we've always made that our priority, especially in this project. It just, like, you know, one thing that you've got to remember is that me and Ken we're simmers as well. We're users. We love everyone else's scenery. We fly everything that we can get our hands on. We're very avid simmers. So yeah, I mean, we know all too well what it's like to, you know, come into an airport and then you've got the stutter or the, like, I think I find stutters more annoying than, say, low frames. Low frames you can always cure with, you know, dropping a setting or two. Like the extremely dense autogen setting up here can cause some animated birds to appear in the autogen at the very high level setting. So I've always run just one notch back from maximum, and that tends to get rid of all of those birds in the autogen.
I see.
But then again, they're really nice to see the cockatoos flying around. You'll find the areas of the dense forest. But frame rates has always been, yeah, number one concern. Good frame rates equals good fun, basically. And also with the aircraft that some of the developers are putting out are absolutely amazing. Some of the stuff I'm seeing coming out, and you know, we are so looking forward to that Porter. the Pilatus
Oh,
porter.
yes.
Yeah, bring on the
And it's
porter.
like, come on. I'm always rocking up there for him, like trying to refraining from posting anything kind of irritable and impatient.
Right.
If you've ever seen one of those porters in action, wow.
Oh, we follow that Indo Bush Pilot guy on Facebook and on his blog pages, and we just love watching his videos and all his photos. And although most of his flying around is in West Papua, the other part of Papua New Guinea, the Indonesian side, we're keeping a very close eye on that because he is providing some great reference images for us.
Ooh, very nice.
And if anyone is listening and knows anyone who flies here or has been here or taken pictures, please get in contact with us on the forums. You can send either of us a PM and we'll get in touch with you. We would love anything, any information, stories, info about anything to do with bush flying in Papua New Guinea. Just pass it on to us. We are seriously considering another pack. Which would
Please
be,
do.
Which would be another major airport. Off the top of my head, with Mount Hagen, Leh sort of thing, that they're quite large airports, and they've got quite a large user base as well in the real world. And it would be another pack with a numerous amount of bush strips included. So we have got that in the planning stages at the moment, but we're just sort of waiting on more info. We've been actually flooded with offers for aerial imagery and other information for some places in Papua New Guinea. So we're sort of correlating all that at the moment. But yeah, we're very keen to do another strip. The feedback that we're getting from everybody on the forums and around the internet's been absolutely outstanding, and we're actually quite gobsmacked at the reaction and the reception that we've got from this. And so yeah, we're actually sort of quite excited to maybe revisit again after our next project.
Nice approach.
Very nice.
Oh, thank you. And just a reminder as well with this Twin Otter, given how magnificent it is, for any of you guys who are familiar with Airline to Sim, they're actually still working on the Q400 program, but they released the cadet training program recently, and I'm still actually going through my type rating course, but they've also started a program for the Twin Otter, which I think will be released, I want to say sometime in October. And they have actually a real-world pilot from it's one of the UK carriers that's going to be teaching us, and that's going to be just a one program, how to fly the Twin Otter. And I think that's terrific because we've seen these AOA programs come along and they teach us how to fly 777s and NGXs, but we've never really had anything to come along to sort of bring us along with some of these smaller aircraft. And what I'd like to imagine is that a lot of flight simulation enthusiasts are not real-world pilots, and maybe they started off as something for fun and they didn't take too seriously, and then at some point they really started to. So I think to have these training programs, especially for something like the Twin Otter, is going to be great. So I don't know if he's going to be putting any of these airstrips in the training program, but certainly this would be an interesting thing to see in terms of how to properly nail these things. Some are easier than others. I think this was a bit of an easier one, but I'm off looking for the lawnmower now.
It's down near, there's two little, I suppose they look like loos, I suppose. There's all sorts of weird shaped grass enclosures, and I don't know what they actually use them for, but it provides a bit of privacy, I suppose, besides going behind a bush.
Was it like an outhouse there, huh?
Yeah, I still notice that your effects aren't working. That's weird.
Oh, okay. Well, let's see. Oh, because there should be smoke or something, isn't it?
Yeah, that's
not good. Let me just double check my effect settings. I know I turned them up high. Let's see. This is prepared V2. So yeah, the special effects and special effects distance sliders are at maximum. So that's odd.
You see, there's the little chimneys there with the smoke coming out. Sometimes you've did you go to World Scenery and you did refresh, didn't you?
I did, yeah.
Remember that? Yeah. I think sometimes you've got to be looking at the actual effect when you refresh for it to make it happen.
I can do it again if you like.
I wouldn't worry too much about it. It's something that they're going to fix in the next version of P3D.
Yeah,
So
there's
no
see in
issue
the
with
chat,
it in FSX.
there's a guy about to fall asleep, and he's really like to get over to Port Moresby because there's so much to see at Port Moresby. You know.
All right, so let's head over there next. Let's see. Oh, there it is. There's the mower. Okay, I wanted to make sure I saw it before I left, so we'll zoom in on it from a distance. And that's modeled after your actual mower there, huh?
Yeah, it's got my fingerprints on it.
Oh, really? Is it that?
I didn't.
Do I really need to get into slew mode and actually get up on that thing, huh?
No, I wouldn't worry. It's just, but I did spend a bit of time modelling it. I wanted it to look like a real lawnmower, so yeah.
Very nice. Yeah, I imagine they have to keep these mowed, obviously, for the planes.
That's the only part they do mow.
Yeah, everything else is the bush, without a doubt.
Oh yeah.
Well, you guys have done an amazing job, especially you, Ken, since the vegetation was your end of the deal here, and just making it feel so tropical.
I think Tim's underestimating his own contribution.
Is
here.
he? Okay.
Yes. No. It was. Look, this was a collaborative effort the whole way through. Tim has a much better understanding of how the sim works than what I do, and his technical expertise on ground polygons and the modelling and all this sort of stuff is really outstanding. I don't think he's going to mind if I mention that he has trouble distinguishing between green and red. So that's why I got landed with the vegetation thing, because I see greens a bit better than what he does. But Tim was always, he had his input, don't worry. He was sort of, can you darken those palm trees look a little bit bright, or this doesn't look quite right, or whatever, you know. He had his hands full with that Port Moresby scenery. I mean, that was, when you get a close look at Port Moresby, that was a real feat, and to keep his frames as high as he did, that's pretty special. So, and I was left to do the bush side of things, but I had heaps of feedback from Tim and suggestions from Tim. So yeah, no, collaborative effort all the way. I'd like to sort of put it that we have skills that complement each other.
Well, they certainly have come together, in my opinion, splendidly, without a doubt. I think you guys make a great team, and as we start to make our way over to Port Moresby, that's what I'd like to get into next, is the two of you, how you two met, how you came together, what's the background on that. But before I do, off the top of your head, for either one of you, do you have more or less a heading for me to get back to get to Port Moresby by any chance?
You got a GPS on that thing?
I do.
Yes, look at the GPS. Port Moresby will be glaring at you.
Oh, I see. It's closer than I think it is then.
Yeah, it's not. It's generally you head, I think it's southwest.
Oh, there it is. That's okay. I see it already. Yeah. I didn't realize it was that close that it would show up. Okay. Yeah. All right. Good. Let's do.
Yeah, it's amazing. You can. What we liked about this package was the fact that you can fly a tube liner, right, and land at Port Moresby, and enjoy all the great stuff that goes on there. You know, I mean, if you have a real close look at Moresby, there's detail in there that I mean, I love just getting a chopper and flying around and checking out what Tim's done around Port Moresby. I mean, considering he was only going to just do a rough version of it, I hate to think what had happened if he tried to do a full-on version of the damn place, because
I'm glad he did.
It's excellent, because
it is.
Someone asked, "Oh, is this right? There's a DC3 attached to one of the buildings," and within about 10 seconds of the guy putting the post up, Tim's come back with a photo, the real photo of the DC3. There's actually a restaurant, isn't it, Tim?
Yeah, it's actually an internet cafe these days, I think.
Internet cafe, sorry, yeah.
Hotel.
Yeah, that's actually attached to the building, and people enter it through the building and go in and go on the internet. So, but just there's a mural. There's so much stuff to find just looking around at Port Moresby. It is beautifully done, you know, and so far the focus has been on these bush strips, but you know, people are underestimating the value that Port Moresby brings to it. It's awesome. It really is a beautiful strip.
Well, we originally started out with Kokoda being the main strip, and then the bush strips after that. But then, you know, we realised that everyone in the sim is probably going to be starting from Port Moresby, and we sort of thought about maybe doing an enhanced version, a little bit like what Neil does with the regions airports. And you know, and very quickly, once you go and place a big box for the terminal, and you go, no, it doesn't look right. You know, it's just before you know it, you've collected a couple thousand pictures, and next thing you know, you've got some big model underway. So you know, we started out with very light plans for it, just make it look a bit better, and then before we knew it, it was a full blown sort of project. Most of my efforts in this project was put into Port Moresby. The imagery that we got for it was I would call it apocalyptic, as is much imagery in Papua New Guinea. But Ken did an amazing job on returning that to a lifelike state. But yeah, like what Ken was touching on before there, one of the things that really made this attractive to us was the distance that you can travel. You know, it's a 10-minute flight from Moresby up to the first of the strips, and so for the user, you know, short on time, you can do one of the longer regional flights, or you can, do a 15-minute flight up to the hills and land, or you can do a half-hour flight, or even if you're really short on time, a 45-second flight. So
yeah, well, and I just noticed someone's asked about the frame per second. Frames. The frames around Moresby are fantastic.
They are.
Yeah. So yeah, there's no problems there. Hanger for you. Hope that helps.
Well, I think they'll find soon enough, once we get over there, they'll see what the frames are, and I'll be sure to leave the benchmark up on the screen. In fact, and I'm pretty sure that both of you missed it, but before I did, oops, I'm not paying attention to what I'm doing here. Before I went into that stream earlier this week where I was just fooling around in the bush strips, I actually did a stream prior to that, just putting a little bit of spotlight on Port Moresby. And all the comments on the comment section were all overwhelmingly positive. They were actually quite shocked at just how detailed it was. And I'm certainly glad, Tim, that you did go full on with the quality of it. In fact, there was only one thing that I actually did note, because I am something of a critic, and that was that in the grass textures, I felt in some areas were a little blurry, but that was really it. As far as everything else, it was 100%. But when I looked at that, then I thought, if you take that and you add it along with just how great the performance is and the level of quality on the buildings, especially the main terminal, it's almost unnoticeable. And it's not that it's blurry. It's just not as sharp as that I've seen in other works. So that was the only negative thing that I had to point out, and probably even in and of itself is not really something negative.
We really had a choice between that or another version of that, and the other version of that had a lot of cloud cover, and that's something that a lot of these equator locations have a great deal of problems with, is cloud interrupting the imagery. And there's not really much you can do when the cloud covers half the airport. You can't just fix it up with the Photoshop brush. So yeah, the imagery for Port Moresby, it isn't great in my books, but Ken did quite a reasonable job with sort of bringing it back to life again. But as always, it's one of the hardest things especially for Papua New Guinea, because most of the imagery, the good stuff, is probably taken for mining companies, and it's not exactly over the town, and probably more kept for areas where they're actually looking at mining or doing some sort of commercial activity. I thought about adding some volumetric grass to the airport, but once I started looking at what would be involved with that, it's quite a lot of. I consider it would have quite a bit of a hit to cover that whole field with grass. The airport, as it stands at the moment, is around about 140,000 polygons, which it's all in one big model. So that's the trick to it, is keeping things in a single model, and also keeping the texture count as low as possible. So I did a lot of optimization there and squashing things in, and you have to make a lot of choices, a lot of compromises and choices in flight sim design. You know, probably half the time you're fighting the constraints of the simulator, and the way things are constrained a lot. The non-developers probably wouldn't have much of an idea of some of the sort of hair pulling that goes on with a lot of development work. The grey hair and long nights and unresolved issues, and so yeah, a lot of development time is spent making compromises. This will work, that'll work. Lowering the resolution on certain things. With Moresby, it's all been AO baked with the ambient occlusion and advanced lighting from 3ds Max. So of course every face of every building is unique. And also the other problem I had with Port Moresby is it's one of the few projects I've done where I didn't have anyone that could go on the ground and take photos. So I relied mostly on photos that were taken out the window of planes, and a number of photos that were taken on the apron looking back at the buildings. Getting shots of the ground side of the buildings was one of the hardest things. There just doesn't seem to be a lot of people taking photos of this airport. So, I've collected maybe about 2,000 photos of the airport, and none of them are usable for it as a texture. So everything you see at the airport, I've handmade that texture. Compromises. It's frustrating. You want to make it the best thing possible. You want to do everything actually the way it is actually shown. But you're always fighting something. If it's not frames, it's trying to find information on buildings. We always have the top-down image to work on, so we know what shape buildings are and where they are, and what the general roof color is. But the hardest one is actually getting the height of the building, and especially in relation to other buildings. So I was lucky in that respect that there was a series of photos that were taken along the main runway looking back at the buildings, so I could get the heights of them fairly accurate to one another. Myself, I'm from a building background. I've spent 10 years working as a builder's offsider and carpenter, and so to me the construction of buildings is sort of like second nature, really. So I take a lot of that with me. It's almost like virtual building. I spent 10 years building some pretty extreme looking houses. They're always round or oval shaped or mud brick, or I've never built a standard house before. Everything I've worked on is just absolutely crazy, geometric domes and all sorts of things. And I ended up injuring my back doing that, and so I had to find a new avenue for income, and so virtual building is it. But yeah, so in regards to Moresby, it was a struggle pretty much from start to finish for information about things, trying to find info for signage and buildings, and some things I didn't find out until the last week or two. Is that what it looks like? Finally found a photo, and there's all these different ways that you can find reference images of things. We're obviously limited to, we can't just go and take someone's photo off the internet and slap that on a building.
Right.
As you'll probably get a call from someone. There are actually companies that spend their entire day just hunting for
their materials.
Naughty things. And so obviously, we've got to keep the, like I was saying before with the Anzac thing, we can't actually mention that in our product.
Right.
The same also goes for logos on things. They're always pretty touchy. So we try to keep logos to a minimum. Obviously, there is some reference to a bank on the terminal, but that's what it looks like. You know, I can't just make something that's a cartoon box with nothing written on it. You know, if that was the case, I probably wouldn't even be able to call it Port Moresby Airport or something. And that's just not how you do it. You've got to add some local colour and flavour in there. One thing I missed adding that I did want to add was there was some pretty hilarious Papua New Guinea mobile phone billboards in the car park, and I did want to add those, but I also didn't want to get a call from Digicel or Vodafone. But I don't know. I mean, you know, how would you look at it? It's advertising.
That's what I would say. It's free advertising. Yeah. Absolutely.
Oh, I would have chucked them in, but I'm a lot less, you know, careful than what Tim is.
Well, the thing is that, you know, as a developer, we make so little from this. It's almost not funny. You know, if you worked out what we work for per hour, you know, you're probably looking at $2 an hour or something. So, I mean, it sounds a bit drastic, but when you clock up all the time that you spend doing research and just dealing with problems as well, maybe you're not quite sure on how to make something or how to create or texture something that's a bit difficult you haven't done before. There goes 3 or 4 hours of trying it. And then also when you're building an airport of this size as well, you also run into, you might have created an issue somewhere in it that you've gone past and you can't come back to the point where you didn't have that issue because you've done too much more content in the time since. So it's an awful lot of time going back and pulling things out that didn't work, or things that clashed, or
we certainly didn't get into scenery design for the money.
No.
It's purely it's something that we just love doing, and if you pick up a bit of pocket money, fantastic.
Well, I remember when Tim and I first exchanged over Facebook in terms of possibly coming on and doing a live stream for the community. I remember Tim's first words were, "Hey, we're just a couple of guys doing what we love," and that really stood out to me because it's the passion. I think it's obvious what developers are here to try to make money, and it's obvious what developers are here because they truly love this stuff. And if it's one of the things, and unfortunately Tim already answered the question, but one of the things I always make it a point of asking developers is, where are you as a developer? Is it really more of a business thing for you, or is it something that you do because you truly love it? It's your passion. And it's interesting. I've sort of heard different things from different developers. Everything from like the two of you, where you absolutely love it. It's your passion. From it used to be my passion. I used to love it, but unfortunately it got to the point where I had to start relying on it because maybe I lost my job or whatever the case was. To developers who have always loved it and got into it because they didn't get the airport they wanted. For example, I mentioned that earlier on the stream, and that's the case with Amir Salehi, who founded Flightbeam Studios. He started off because he's a video game developer. He's worked for some large video game companies, and he always loved flight simulation. And he couldn't figure out why Flight Tampa wasn't going back and doing San Francisco. San Francisco is his home airport. No one else was doing it, so he said, you know what, screw it, I'm just going to do it myself. And then there are developers who really are just, they're developers. They come from the video game industry, and this is something that they're extremely good at, but as flight simulation as a hobby in and of itself may not be so interested in. And I'm grateful for all developers across the spectrum for obviously donating their talent to the community, because I'm extremely passionate about it. I love it, and that's why I try to do the work that I do, just in terms of trying to do my part in the whole circle of things. But there's nothing that I love to hear more than a couple of developers that just say, hey, you know what, we love it, and we enjoy doing it, because the passion shows, and it's very clear in the work that we've seen today.
Well, this is kind of how, and yeah, thank you for that. We appreciate Air Daily sort of exposing us a bit more, and we obviously tentatively log on to Air Daily every day to see if it's
I love that
comment or something there that make you shudder a bit, but that's how you know, that's how I started to begin with. Was you know, I bought FSX back in 2005 or 2006, sorry, and you know, I logged in and I'm like, you know, of course the first thing I do is type in my local airport, Katoomba. It's like, you're like, what? It's not there. What is this?
Exactly.
And and then the next thing you know, it's like, right, I want it. Someone make it for me. And then you know, you get the kind of no, you know, someday, mate, we'll get to it. We'll get to it. You know, and it's like 2 months later, why haven't you made it? And it's like, why can't you just make it? And so then the next thing you know, it's like, right, well, I'm going to do it myself. And then yeah, before you know it, you're placing things and finding the SDK, and the next thing you know, you've bought a couple of tools, and the next thing you know, you've learned how to make a box or a shed or a hangar or something. And it's the most wonderful moment as a new developer to see your first building in the sim, and it's working, and it's, you know, it's shiny, and the texture's the right way up, and you know, it actually looks like a building. And so yeah, that's one of the, you know, greatest things, and it just sort of snowballs from there. Once you learn those sort of techniques, and
they call it the dark side. You get lured into the dark side. You have this vision of doing something, and then like we both learned at as I said at Orbx, where it was just a bunch of guys who had a passion for flight simming, and they were all discovering, how can we do this, how can we do that, and some guys knew a bit more than others. And we all sort of grew together. You know, we exchanged information, how we did things. And, you know, the first airport you do, I remember the first one I did in Tassie, a little strip that I actually went out to when I used to jump up on roofs installing satellite dishes. And I remember being out, and this guy had his own private airstrip. The base of Mount Roland.
Nice.
Beautiful place. It gets snow on there occasionally. And I thought, wow, this would be really neat to do. And I jumped onto Google Earth, and look, the imagery doesn't look too bad. So I'd learned how to capture imagery from Google Earth, and there was an agreement, if you were doing freeware, you didn't have to pay for the imagery. So, okay, well, I wasn't trying to make money out of it, so freeware was fine with me. And so I remember capturing this imagery and putting it into the sim, meticulously following, you know, instructions shared from my fellow developers, and flying out there and seeing it, going, wow, look at that, it's there. You know, you can't describe. It's almost like the first time you go solo. Anyone that's learned to fly, when you go solo, boy, it's a mixture of fear and excitement and utter joy, because you go, I did it. I actually did it. You know, and it's the same with scenery design. You actually did it. And as Tim said, once you've done that, you're hooked, and you just want to keep doing it. And the more you do, the more you want to do it. It is a passion, and it lures you to the dark side, you know. Join Darth Vader and become a developer, you know.
We all have our personal heroes and people that we look up to, you know, like Jared Marshall. I have to give a shout out to Jared.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. That guy is he's exceptional. I'll unashamedly say that I study, or what we call snoop, Jared's scenery quite regularly, and it's like a lot of us take cues for, you know, what you can get away with, what you should focus on, and you know, Jared's always been someone that I've looked up to in scenery design, and Russ White as well was another one. He brought a few, you know, pretty new things to the sim for us all, and really, you know, getting into more detail with things, and so yeah, you know, and there's a few other guys as well on the team that I've always looked up to for their scenery and modelling skills, but yeah, it's just something that it's measured relative to how much you get into it. I don't think you could do. I think the headaches involved with developing for flight sim would drive you out of the industry really quickly if you didn't like it. If you're just doing this for money, purely, and not for the love, then I think you're in it for the wrong reason, and I think it will show in your scenery too, because you do have to put that extra sort of mile into it, I think. And also it keeps you going in the dark hours. Obviously for the end user, you see an airport that's finished and everything's in place, but quite often for us as developers, it looks like a barren desert of nothingness for quite a while, and it's actually, it can be quite depressing too when you get up in the morning, you look at your scenery, it's like, it just doesn't look like anything yet. And then, and in the last couple of days, you put all the finishing touches and vegetation in and finish off the markings finally and that sort of thing. And it's like, oh, it actually does look like an airport finally. And obviously, obviously, when you're doing an airport this size as well, obviously, if you've got all the static aircraft turned on, there's quite a lot of polygons involved that you just wouldn't even notice or think about. So it's obviously a huge consideration when we're doing it. We're always fighting to have something that's runs smoothly, because there's nothing that a developer hates more than stuttering or the other one as well is you release a scenery and all of a sudden you get flooded with support things about how it's breaking your computer or that really hurts as a developer when and it's a private thing. You hurt privately, and everyone wants their scenery to be the one that everyone loves, and when someone doesn't love it, and the problem with Flight Sim 2 is that everyone has a different computer, everyone has a different makeup of their PC. Even if they've got the same goddamn PC, they've got it set up differently, or they're running maximum AI or something that's going to destroy their frames. And it's not like a console. You can't just, it's not just one size fits all. It's everyone runs different things, different weather, different, so it's always, it's a battle to kind of get something that works really good for everyone, and that's something that we always strive for.
Check out these murals.
It's beautiful.
Tim he hand drew these. I know he won't brag himself, but I remember being gobsmacked when Tim was showing me, especially on the international terminal, he actually hand drew. You saw photos of artwork, and I couldn't believe he was going to do it. And he went in and he hand drew all these beautiful, like native designs on the facades of these buildings.
So those concrete ones. I had a number of photos out the window of planes of them, but none of them were complete, and they're all at weird angles and stuff. So yeah, I kind of had to just. Luckily, they're fairly symmetrical shapes, so it was. But it took quite a while to draw them all and to get some sort of resemblance happening.
But the international terminal one's just gobsmacking. It's brilliant.
It was probably the thing on the international terminal. The big bird of paradise was probably the thing that ended up making me fall in love with this airport more than anything. I had to do that. It was like I'm doing that, and it was one of the. And I mean, it's not the world's most prettiest terminal. I mean, I've seen there are actually some beautiful Asian terminals in some of the Indonesian and Asian airports that I've got my eyes on. I love all those pagodas and that sort of thing. So,
oh yeah, I know exactly what you mean.
Being a huge fan of architecture and building design, to me, a cool looking building is worth modelling. But so yeah, doing the murals on the front of these terminals was something that I've probably put a little bit more time into than I should have. When you sort of start thinking about it was a couple of days, I think, to draw them all, but but then again, without the murals, it just wouldn't be Moresby, I guess.
I don't think it would be.
Aren't they great?
They're terrific.
I love those roof shapes.
I imagine that's not as easy to do as one might think.
Building the actual model itself is easy. The construction of the model, but getting the dimensions of the things is pretty hard, because they don't exactly give you the plans. They don't exactly just hand this stuff out to you. And obviously, we also face that problem these days, post 9/11, where anyone who talks about an airport or wants to know anything about it, is one of them terrorists or something.
Right.
And it's really hard to say, look, I'm not. I'm working for this, this Australian company called Orbx or whatever it's people refer to it as sometimes, and Orbx or something, I've heard, and they're all, and they also think we're crazy. The amount of times I've rung up airports and explained what I was doing, and the blokes just hung up the phone on me, or told me I was nuts or something.
Look at that! Isn't that amazing? Sorry, Tim, but I just had to say that. I love that bloody mural.
And it's so crisp. It's incredibly crisp. Huh? It is. It really is. And it's funny because I pointed out the very same thing in my initial stream. Whenever I get a new project, the first thing I do is I want to slew around and do my own tests. And so I've gotten accustomed to just doing streams while I do that. And that the very thing is what I pointed out is that it's not there's nothing really special about the look of the airport. I mean, it's a building with glass and jet bridges, but it's that sort of cultural, ethnic artwork, and that really makes it what it is and what makes it great. And I mean, the fact to now know that that's all hand drawn as opposed to just imagery, which I thought it was. I thought it was just photoreal imagery. So I mean, you fooled me. So I think that really goes to show just how versatile your work ethic and discipline is.
Well, getting an image of, say, there's a part of the mural that goes underneath those jet bridge extensions. I've only got like 2 photos of that, and they're taken from about 500 meters away. And so, with the help of Photoshop and the auto correction, perspective correction tool, I can kind of get it roughly back to I knew what the design was under those ones. But then again, I've had to use a little bit of artistic creative license or whatever they call it on those ones just under the jet bridges, and I think I came up with something that was appropriate. But all the other ones, and especially the main Bird of Paradise centerpiece ones, they're all exactly as it is in real life. Of course, this is a third world airport, so there's some real hardship goes on here in this country, and people have got a really a tough time living here, and so I would imagine most of this stuff is bled out of the pockets of the government and taxes and that sort of thing. So what they've done with what they've got is pretty amazing at this airport, and it is a unique airport as well.
And it's one of the reasons why I'm personally grateful that both of you have taken the time to do this, because, like you said, countries that might be that are considered third world countries, I think these are places that many developers won't bother to even go into, because if there's not a flight simulation community there, what assurances do they have that it'll be popular, that the work will be worth the effort, and obviously worth the amount of investment that they have to put into it. So I think with that said, the fact that I almost see it almost as if it's something of an experiment that the two of you have done here. And I think, and what I'm hoping is that other developers are watching, or they're taking note and saying that, maybe there is a possibility that if we go into some of these areas that we would have otherwise overlooked, that perhaps maybe there is something to be gained from developing some of these airports, because just because there may not be a local community there doesn't mean that people haven't visited, or that there will not be or is not an interest. And the fact that, like you guys have said, that the scenery has been regarded as very well by the community, and the sales so far have been very well. I think it's something to show that it's worth a look going into some of these unlooked previously areas, and I'm hoping that other developers will start to follow suit. Maybe not necessarily on your territory, obviously, but definitely something to keep in mind, as opposed to just all of the mainstream products that we've gotten over the years. And I think, again, that's one of the things that's great about Orbx, is going in and doing those small airfields and all of these places that no other developer would ever do. I think that's one of the great things about Orbx.
Now, for anyone watching this, there is also an option in the control panel to have all the static aircraft on, and you'll have all the 737 in New Guinea and 767s and there is a C-130 Hercules on the cargo stand. So we've filled up the whole airport with quite high quality static aircraft.
And there's what about Graham's got
that are there. So I think you've got it on the AI setting at the moment for Graham's AI
I do,
pack.
and I can explain why. Because my concern was that the static aircraft would take up all the gates, and I wanted to make sure that there is at least one jet bridge available gate for me to park at, and that's the only reason why I deactivated it. But as long as one of those gates are open, then yeah, I'd love to actually activate all of the statics, because they're really nice, actually. I saw that Fokker there, and that's an unusual one to have. But I was just afraid that all the gates would be taken up, and there would be no place for my AI to park, or anywhere for me to park when I arrive as well.
Well, I mean, I have to give a huge shout out to Graham Eccleston here. He took over charge of all the Apex work. So that's all the invisible skeleton work that lies underneath the airport that allows all of the AI traffic to drive smoothly around corners and stop and start. And he's totally organised all of the AI so that they use the appropriate runways for the weights of the aircraft. And he also did all the Apexes for all the extra regionals that we chucked in. So a huge shout out to Graham here. He's a great friend of ours, and we've got a huge amount of respect for the work that he's put into this as well. While he wasn't a full developer with us on this project, he pretty much took charge of the APXs, and I'm very grateful to Graham for doing that, because some of that APX work is still a very black art to me. I can do it, but I can't do it like Graham does it. And for anyone who doesn't know Graham, he has done all the AI packs for Orbx, and a huge freeware download that he's got there for.
And he does it for nothing.
He does it for absolutely nothing as well. He does it.
He just this man is a fanatic with AI. He just loves. He absolutely loves watching traffic come and go at airports.
We've had a few arguments, and I've always lost with Graham, because he's always put the right, he's always been right. It's like, okay, Graham, we're gonna do that. Okay, I accept the fact that I'm wrong and I want to do something that's right. He won't let me put an aircraft where it's not supposed to go. I'll just leave it at that.
But he even upgraded his paint pack to have the New Guinea paints on them, so the AI that comes in there has all got the New Guinea paints on them. It's really something special.
Oh, and you know what? I actually don't have the AUAI traffic here in this system. It's in the older system upstairs, so I need to make it a point to do that. That's right. I was relying on my other AI traffic packages to bring the AI in, and it looks like they haven't arrived, so I do need to make sure I do that as well.
Yeah, if you have Graham on it.
He did the pack so there's the 21 regional airports right out across Papua New Guinea. All of the air traffic originates here in Port Moresby, and once it gets going, after about 15 minutes, there are I don't know how many there are, but there's countless amounts of AI that are flying back and forth. All the Dashes and the 737s and all the smaller aircraft, they're all puttering around, and so the skies of Papua New Guinea sort of came alive thanks to Graham, and as well, I'm fairly sure they're also all the accurate schedules, because I saw he had an April 2014 flight schedule that he was working on, so that all the AI in this are all sort of doing what they should do and taking off at the right times and landing up at the right airport for the night and all that sort of thing. So that was the main reason why we chucked in the extra regionals, was because Graham said that he was sending all these aircraft to all these different airports, but they were disappearing when they got to that airport, and so the next thing you know, he's doing the Apex, and the next thing you know, we're adding them in, and yeah, so sort of the rest is history. But yeah, huge shout out to Graham, and we're always appreciative of that.
You want to head back over to the main terminal? There's a mural I'd love you to see.
Absolutely.
Underneath that sort of the odd-shaped roofs between the two terminals. If you get down very low...
Should it be airside or landside?
Airside.
Okay.
And you'll see this mural. It's a beautiful mural. I just wish we had a better imagery of it, but I just love it. It's a real piece of Papua New Guinea art.
Thinking of, I actually had to keep it low res on purpose. Because being a commercial company with Flight Sim, we can't sell porno, we can't sell pictures of naked people. because we're G8 rated. So there are some booblies, and we had to keep them very, very low res. And John, if you're listening, very sorry about that, but it was part of the project. But we did keep them very, very low res so that you can't quite make out anything.
Oh, but it's Papua New Guinea art. It's
I know,
not.
and
It's not. I would not call it. I mean, anyone that's opened up a National Geographic magazine and seen, as a kid, they saw boobies. This is. It's not in the slightest way degrading, or this is just genuine Papua New Guinea art. It's lovely, beautiful stuff.
Well, in my opinion, I think anything that represents a real world counterpart, it's like who are you? Essentially, it's like who are you protecting by not having it, simply because of the fact that anyone who visits the airport in real life would see it anyway. It's just representative of a culture. But yeah, you definitely blurred it though. I can see that for sure. But the fact that you included it anyway, though, I mean, that still says something. I mean, you want it to be respectful. While also giving tribute to the fact that it is a part of the culture. And I think if you had not added it at all, it would, even though I didn't even know it was there until Ken said something, I think could have been robbing the airport of something that is, indigenous to its existence.
Yeah, I mean, we don't really go in for all of the internal modelling of things. We like to keep what we do purely airside, in the pilot seat kind of thing. So we don't pay too much attention to the things that you can't see. So a lot of this stuff you actually can't see from the cockpit of your plane, but we put it in anyway, geometry wise. But obviously, getting photos of this is. I think I had 2 photos of this building, and one of the photos was covered in a fence. So I did the best I could with it. But yeah, they're all naked women, by the way. If you go looking on the internet at photos of Port Moresby Airport, you'll find them there. They're beautiful. I mean, they are. I mean,
it's beautiful
yes,
stuff.
I should stop now.
Yes, we'll leave that to the viewers in their own. Leave that to their own devices should they decide to.
They are very colourful people. Look at the headdresses that they wear. I mean, when you look at the villages and you see the headdresses and the things that they wear, the more traditional stuff, it's absolutely amazing. They're very colourful people, and their symbol is the bird of paradise, and that thing. That's one of the most colourful birds out,
And for anyone watching as well, those flags, there's one for each of the one for each of the regions in Papua New Guinea. I think there's 20 or 21 total, and each region has its own flag, and they're all represented there on the flagpoles. Again, we didn't use animated flags or any animated grass in this project. Again, it was just purely about frames. Those things are really, really nice, and I will not degrade what I think of them. And I love the fact that Russ was able to fit lots of animated stuff into his scenery. But again, that works quite well on a small airport basis. But when you start getting into a couple 100,000 polygons, you really have to watch what you're doing. And also I think I started out with animated flags, but in the end I think there was 30 of them in total. And the animated flags we use on the smaller airports. We try to keep them to a minimum. So I've just set all these up in a unique fashion so that they're all different stage of waving. But also, they're quite small when you're out on the airport. So again, that's what I'd call a compromise that we have to make on things. I try to keep the people to the airside on this as well. It's each people float character has quite a number of polys, and once you start totaling all those up, you start freaking yourself out.
Well, just to put
but one of the things that here is building this in a single model is the way to go with larger airports. I don't know how many other developers do that, And obviously, when you do it in a single model like this with the AO baking, like someone just said there, the lighting, you're able to burn. So all of the lighting here is burnt on using this scan line rendering for in Max. So every face angle of every object gets a light cast on it. Obviously, the vehicles, the GSE, have a default lighting on them because they're placed numerous times. But yeah, all the lighting is cast down and sort of burnt onto the texture sheets. So,
and I like how you did that too, by the way.
And obviously, I mean, this is my first time experimenting with that burning the light on. So, you know, we're all learning. Everybody's learning, I think, still, in just different stages of learning.
Well, I think
I'm going to
it's
take it to another level with my next project, which is another international airport, by the way, and it's in the Pacific. We won't disclose what it is yet because we all like surprises, I think, don't we?
Yes, I think so.
Well, I think again, the method of which you did the night lighting is actually what stood out to me most. In fact, if you go on Air Daily X and you look at the very first post that I made, I had a number of screenshots that you guys put together from that first post. And one of all the ones that I chose for the main shot was actually a night shot from the land side of the terminal, and that's what stood out to me most, because just looking at sort of the ethnic designs and the artwork of the terminal is what stood out to me most out of all those screenshots. And your night lighting method, I think that the very method of which you just spoke about, Tim, I think is. I think you're going in a very good direction with it, and I definitely would like to see more of it, because it certainly is standing out to me, and I think the night lighting here is remarkable.
Thank you. It's night lighting, and I'll speak for a number of people here. Night lighting is what we call a pain in the neck. Something that always hits you at the end of the project, and that's when you start to discover all the things that are wrong. So, like, the first time you start to go in and start checking nighttime, and it's like, oh, you know, that thing is lit up, or that thing's just black, and that thing's not lit up, and so all of a sudden you start pulling your scenery apart, and next thing you know, it's all back in pieces on the floor, like an IKEA kit or something. And so for this project, I did have to keep night lighting as a front and center of my mind while I was doing it. But obviously, it was something that I couldn't do until the very, very end, when that's when we as developers switch into nighttime mode, and we just end up looking at the airport at night, just making sure everything has the right level of light cast. And one bugbear, I guess, of Sim is that the AI doesn't light up at night, because it only has the one texture, and
Right.
You can't have a plane flying along at night in the sky lit up like a hot air balloon. So obviously that's one limitation of the sim, and that's something I'd love to see, is the ability to cast light onto objects successfully. This is another thing as well that we're finding issues with having multiple sims now, and you know, I'll be first to admit I'm one of the ones that hopes FSX dies soon. I would really wish everyone would just move to P3D, and it is. I mean, it is growing rapidly, and we're actually shocked at the level of growth in P3D that has happened since we've been doing these triple installers and supporting it as much as we have. But the options in P3D are so much greater for a developer, and having Lockheed Martin on board, and we've got our own little private ear into the development team there, and we're always poking them, and Ken's quite a prolific poker of P3D, and he's always bringing up things, and Graham too, and so and the great thing is that they're really responsive. Lockheed Martin, I've got to give full kudos to them. They have implemented just about everything that we've asked them to, and the best thing is that they're there. They're there. They're working on it. They're improving it. They're turning us into what we've always wanted, which is all of that real-time shadowing. The cloud shadows for just amazing. So we're really excited for the future of that, and as what happened with FS9 and FSX, like FSX is in my mind is a bit broken, and a lot of that blame lies purely on backwards compatibility with FS9, because FS9, if no one knows, was a flat world. Whereas FSX went to the round globe, and that was when, you know, there was a lot of problems working around that round globe thing. But P3D giving us some great solutions to work with that now, and it's something that it's hard because you've also got to make it compatible with FSX as well as P3D V2. I don't know anyone who's still flying 1.4 version, but if you are, get version 2. Seriously, it's a lot better. But supporting multiple sims like that, we are ending up now with getting our installers are quite complicated, and you know we've got certain files for certain sims that we've got to separate, and it's something that we've got to do. You know, towards the end of the project, we start sorting out. You know, all the libraries have to be switched over to the P3D standard, and there's a number of things we've got to change. And there's still things I'd like to do with this airport too, like maybe brighten some textures that come across a bit dark in P3D. But that's just sort of the level of, you know, the what you've got to work with when you're doing cross sim development. You know, I'd love it if FSX just became P3D overnight, and we could just do the work for the one sim and really max it out. But you know, I'm not the CEO of Orbx, and I don't have any control over that. So that's, you know, it's entirely up to John. And I think for the near future, the next couple of years, we'll definitely be supporting FSX. You know, 100%. It's still a great sim. Users are getting faster computers, and it is it's, you know, it's only improving as we fit more stuff into it. But I think at the end of the day, it is limited. It is dead, static. Nothing happens to it. No problems will be fixed further. You've got guys, you know, doing the DirectX 10 fixes, good on them. But really, it's just keeping a dead horse alive. This is my opinion, not Orbx's. And I think the sooner that, you know, the majority of us move across to P3D, I think probably what will happen with that is when PMG bring their NGX across, most people have come across. I know we're all waiting for that. Good on air to air. Like I've got to give a massive kudos to everybody, every developer out there who's embracing P3D with open arms. Good on you. There's a couple out there that are not embracing it, and I really don't know what your cup of tea is. And good luck to you.
Well, go ahead.
A little plug for P3D from my perspective is that P3D is for a pilot, and I'm not taking anything away from people who fly FSX, but when you've flown in real life and then you fly in FSX, it always was lacking that immersion factor. When you fly in P3D and you actually fly through clouds, and you know you see the world being created as realistically, it's something that doesn't come across in screenshots. You really need to get in there and fly. And one of the first things that I noticed when I switched over was that when I took screenshots in FSX, it was always outside the cockpit. You know, take the scenery with the plane in it. When I switched to P3D, I found that the view from inside the cockpit felt like I was really there. And yeah, it is the immersion factor. You just can't see it in screenshots. It's only something that can be felt. And once you feel that, you will not go back to FSX. Seriously, you won't. It's an immersion, realism thing, and there's just, you can't compare the two.
No, I absolutely agree. Yeah, I actually, I mean, the opinions of the both of you mirror my own, and I've actually been accused by some, and for me, I see it as the only way forward. Naturally, there is this rumor, and I only leave it as a rumor because until there is an official announcement, then it is a rumor, and that the flight platform has been purchased, or the engine rather has been purchased by a video game company, and it sort of coincides with Microsoft's latest announcement that they have officially shut down flight servers, and maybe that could be alluding to something, maybe not, who knows. Certainly when it comes to Prepared and Lockheed Martin, certainly when Microsoft was developing Flight, they sort of brought in the development community with the notion, or rather the understanding, that the development community would be on board leading us to this great simulator. And don't get me wrong, they did, because flight and the engine that it is on is terrific, but it's also sort of the underlining ideology that Microsoft had that they wanted to bring along with flight that sort of corrupted it and I think ultimately sank it. But with that said, what Lockheed Martin has done is, without a doubt, they have brought on the development community and they've opened us with open arms, and they listen not only to the developers but to the users who visit the forums and report problems. They listen, and you know, the fact that there is a 2.3 coming, that there are updates that are continuously rolling in, I think is great. And also to touch on a bit of what you said, Ken, in regards to the immersion factor, flying from within the three-dimensional virtual cockpit. When I first saw the shadows for the first time moving around the cockpit, and flying through the volumetric clouds and actually seeing the cloud layers and shadows flow over the terrain and flow over the aircraft, never before had I seen anything so realistic in a computerized simulation before. And obviously I understand, you know, that there are FSX users that have their computer set up the way they love it, and they're reluctant. And I will say this, I understand to a very significant point where they're coming from. I mean, even I myself didn't fully drop FS9 until probably 6 months ago, and even then I was still reluctant to just say goodbye to the platform. So I understand the want to stick with it, but I think when we're looking at the future of this hobby, which number one is a very niche hobby, and number two, there are very few newcomers coming into the hobby because naturally it's not on Steam, it's not on store shelves, so there are a few people that are just coming across it naturally. For those of us who are sticking with it, the best thing we can do is, in my opinion, collectively as a community, is to support the platform that has embraced us. And lucky for us, Lockheed Martin has probably at least as much money as Microsoft in terms of research and development. So, you know, there's no real worry or concern that they're just going to leave it, you know, to the fishes at some point. Obviously, they purchased the engine for themselves, and here came this community out of left field, and they certainly embraced us. So, to mirror exactly what the two of you have said, I think the best thing we can do is to embrace it fully, and I certainly have done so. And as far as Air Daily X is concerned, I still support FSign. If a developer develops something for FSign and it looks great, I'll create an article for it. Obviously, a lot of developments are FSX and prepared. A lot of developments are still FSX, and if they work with prepared, and if I can get them to work, then naturally I will, you know, I support them either way, and I will let users know, hey, this works in prepared, or this certain facet of the product doesn't work, and so on and so forth. But ultimately, I am very pleased to see the level of commitment that the development community has taken, and even with Orbx going through all the trouble of creating these triple installers, which must be hell, you know, because you've got to make sure it works for FSX. Then there's prepared version 1, and then of course prepared version 2. Now version 3 is coming out, and if it's too much different than version 2, there may have to be a quadruple installer. So I certainly understand where you're coming from when you say that you hope that everyone will just move on to one platform. And believe me, you're not the only developer to have said that. I've heard that from a number of developers already, that they wish that everyone would just go prepared and leave FSX behind. But I guess as with everything, things happen gradually.
I know there's also issues with legal stuff in regards to data used, where people have only been licensed to use that data in one sim. I think that goes for the other our other competitors, or old competitors, UTX and GEX. Might have had some issues with the data that they used, but that's not for me to talk about. But I think, yeah, and the same with PMDG. I think they, you know, being Boeing and the other guys are Lockheed, I think there's also some stuff going on there that we're not privy to, because what we make is not really subjected to any kind of thing. When we buy stuff, we buy a license to use it in our products, and you know that includes P3D. So, you know, I can't speak for everyone. I mean, I understand that there are some companies having massive problems with legal stuff that we don't sort of get to see really much of.
Right. So let's see. We've gone over quite a bit longer than we've initially expected. Did the two of you want to just take a quick browse through the comments, because we don't want to leave our viewers on the hook, and see if there's any questions that stand out to you? I did see a statement, not so much a question, and I don't know if Larry1216 is still watching, but he did point out something that's notable. He said that one of the attractions for me I'm assuming toward the scenery, is that my dad was in the U.S. Army in World War II and went from Hawaii to Australia to New Guinea, where he contracted malaria in New Guinea, which ended the war for him. I've been to Australia, but this is the only way I'll explore PNG. So it looks like you guys have affected at least one life. Uh, Other than mine, of course, with this terrific scenery. And obviously, not only have you guys created something that is visually stunning and certainly challenging, but also I think you've hit something that hits a lot of people right in the heart. Certainly, as you mentioned earlier, Tim, that it does evoke a lot of the history for Australians and the war effort as well. So I think for a lot of people, this may go a lot deeper than just being a scenery, but something that can have a lot more rather sentimental value, I think, for them.
Well, we took a real stab in the dark with this. Like, I think even our boss was a little bit worried about us, but we kind of just said we're doing this, and this is what we're doing. And but I think, yeah, we did take a real stab in the dark with this, and we took a real chance. And I don't think a lot of other people would have even taken that chance. We're not into making the next Sydney or the next LA or something. That's just not us. You know, we're bush pilots at heart. So anything you see from me and Ken will always have a general bush flying element to it. But from this release, we have realised that, you know, people do love an international, and so the South Pacific and the Pacific Oceania and Lower Asian region, this will be our nest, and there are plenty of slightly smaller internationals. I'd call Port Moresby a medium international, medium light, and so they are completely up our street. So yeah, you'll definitely see more of this sort of thing from us. And to touch back on the experience part as well, that's the main part of our thing. You won't see another single regional airport from us, a single airport product. Everything you see from us from now on will be multiple airports, stuff to do, places to go, and we want to get people out there to see more of the country. And with FTX Global, that has really opened up the area to us. We can do things to it to make it look better as well from our side, to improve it.
On that, we just had word from the boss that he's pushing forward the upgrading of the of the global land class in the areas that we're going to be working in. Yeah, the Asian and possibly the Pacific, Oceania areas. So if anyone that's sort of starts to get into global, the boss has recognised that this region has been somewhat neglected, and he can see the benefit in upgrading it. Yeah.
So it's been given a bump up the priority list. So
I'm happy to
we
hear
were
that.
talking about that yesterday, because we sort of said we'd love to see more of the Asia part. So we're talking Malaysia, Indonesia, Vietnam, Thailand, Philippines, these sort of places. So
My wife will be happy to hear that.
One of my favourite movies is Air America, and I just love the flying and scenes in that, you know. And
Right.
Another package we've sort of thrown about a bit is doing, you know, like a Vietnam style Air America type package.
We're going to need that airplane then.
Yeah, you know, because people can relate to stuff like that, and you know, I know when I fly, and I think when most people fly on the sim, it's more than looking at a computer screen. You're putting yourself in the scene. You're really flying that plane. You're really seeing that scenery, and that's the beauty of it. You feel like it's a real world experience. It's not just a game, you know.
Right.
Another question there was answered. Do Buffalo's aeroplanes operate here? No, but Buffalo type aeroplanes do or did operate here. DC-3s and DC-4s and all those sorts of things got a lot of use here. Any plane that's tough, hardy, resilient, can handle high humidity is perfect here. Porters, Twin Otters. Papua New Guinea's seen its fair share of DC-3s, I'll tell you that. They're everywhere. There's wrecks here, there. There's actually 3 in Port Moresby Airport on pedestals. And next question there was Netherlands won against Costa. No, hang on, that's soccer.
Yeah, you know
Can't
that's
get
going to
away from
slip
the
in. We're
soccer.
going up against the World Cup, so
Nah. Question to Orbx, since you did PNG now, is there a chance that you'll head over to Africa once? Africa's like a dark country to me. I don't know a lot about it. I don't know too much about the flying side of it there, but yes, definitely we're looking at any place that has a great bush flying experience. It was definitely on our radar. So is South America. There's some stuff up there in the Andes that I quite like to look of. And I know
Imagery's
Ken's
the thing.
with me on that.
Yeah.
Imagery and ground photos are the hardest thing to come by in this game. So if anyone has any kind of connection to bush flying in any region and has photos, we would love to hear from you, because they can quite often make or break a project being started. Just looking through the questions now. Orbx airports always fit perfectly with the surrounding. Yeah, that's something that we take a lot of care in, and that is the Orbx, I don't know what the term is for that, but that's the Orbx thing, is immersion into the existing scenery, and that's why we recommend using FDX Global with the PNG add-on, because we have coloured all of our photoreal and our vegetation to match the surrounding land class tiles. Yes, creating textures by hand rather than photos allows you a lot more freedom and a lot more creative opportunities too.
I think there was a question there about Orbx is having trouble with P3D V2. I don't think any more than any other.
No,
any
I'm
other
not quite
company
sure of what that question's in regards to.
Yeah,
Not covering anything up, but I don't think that
We've
any
had no
of us
problems.
really have any issues with it. Of course, there are small teething problems. I think there was one land class tile in America is a bit reflective in P3D, and that actually is something that Holger's onto, but it's actually something that P3D's got to fix at their end.
And it was a problem with the object flow DLL, which we had trouble getting in touch with the guy who writes that for us, but
what we've done now is we've centralized that object flow module, which you've probably realized with the latest Orbx libs, the last couple, is that now we have one object flow. It gets added to your DLL XML once, so you haven't got like 25 entries to your thing, so it keeps it simple. It's one object flow DLL. As the airports come on board with the triple installers, they all will get updated to use that single module. And when your FTX Central gets started, it connects to the internet and it checks for the latest version if there is one. And that's what we do with that little connection, is just make sure that you've always with the latest update. Every time P3D do another update, like 2.3 coming, we've had to update object flow again to use that. I don't know why. That stuff is a dark art to me. I'm not a coder. And we'll leave that in the realm of the dark art people. Next question. Let me see. I think I touched on the animated stuff. Animated wind-driven stuff I'd love to see more of, but it does have a massive hit on frames, and you do have to use it sparingly. I'd love to see grass that covered the whole world, that moved to the wind and all that sort of stuff, and I'm sure we'll see that in the future as we get better and better computers and better technology.
And speaking of computers really quickly, Aviation Sim 4682 was noting the system specs that it's a Jetline Systems PC, and it looks like he has one and enjoys his as well. Yep, absolutely. Everything run today was on a Jetline Systems PC. For more information about them, check out jetlinesystems.com. Ever since I got mine, I have been in heaven, absolutely. So definitely check them out. A little bit of shout out there. Any other questions in here, or if no other questions, is there anything that the two of you just wanted to say to the community? Any other thoughts or feelings that you guys have? I've had a wonderful time speaking to the both of you.
I would like to give a special thanks to everyone who has purchased our PNG bush pack. We're absolutely flabbergasted, I think is the word, at the reception and at the uptake of it. We're getting sent little updates from our boss every couple of days, and We're literally jumping around with excitement that we've actually made something that's popular like this, and especially as it was something that we kind of expected it might fail as well. So there was that sort of side of it, and so thank you so much to everyone who's taken it up and having fun with it. That's as a developer, it's the greatest thing is to see people having fun with your scenery, and I'm seeing that everywhere. So thank you so much. Ken?
Yeah, I reiterate what Tim said. I couldn't agree more, and also thanks to Andre for giving us the opportunity to let people see our passion that we have for this sim, because that's what drives us. It's the love of flying.
Yep.
A mate of mine once said, certain people look up in the sky when they hear a plane, and they always do. And it's just it's you either have it or you don't. And Tim and I, and I'm sure everyone that jumps behind a flight simulator has that passion, and that's what's going to keep this platform going. It's not dollars. It's not big companies making squillions of dollars. It's people with real passion that just enjoy what they do. And as long as that exists, Flight Sim's going to be here forever. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, and thank you for the kind words too.
Yeah, we really appreciate that, Andre. It's sort of I see it really only with Air Daily at the moment. Is this sort of I can log into your site and I'll see news every day about something, and I have to admit I've actually stopped visiting other people's forums. The one thing that brings me down a little bit about the thing, and I guess it's one thing that keeps it going too, is some of the arguments get to me a bit pointless, arguments about pointless things, but I guess that's what keeps it alive, is that sort of the debating side of it. I don't really care which plane is best. I love them all, but I must admit I do visit your site regularly to check up on what everyone else is doing and have a little sticky beak, and everyone loves to have a snoop at each other, I think.
Yeah.
And thank you very much for having us on, and thank you to everyone for listening and sticking with us on what was sort of ended up being quite a long show. But yeah.
Yeah, it's my longest Skype conversation, I think.
I think
3
so.
hours and 21 minutes. That's
well,
quite a...
certainly a lot of challenging, beautifully, visually immersive, passionate moments. Yeah. If we could sub it into one long run-on sentence.
And hats off to your flying skills, Andre.
Oh, I have a long way to go, but thank you.
I was particularly impressed with the chopper flying, mate. That was really good. That was some beautiful flying.
Well, thank you very much. I really appreciate it. Yeah, years and years of practice, to be honest, years of practice. But it's all in my passion, and to be honest, with Air Daily X, and I'm just as passionate about that as I am about flying. So believe it or not, I probably spend more time on the site these days than I do in the simulator. And when I'm in the simulator, I'm mostly doing reviews. So it's more work than play, but yet it's all fun. And if it helps sell a product, then if only to one person, then I feel like I've done something good, because at the end of the day, my biggest concern, like I said, which I mentioned earlier, is that Flight Simulator is not on store shelves anymore, and it's not in the gaming places that reach out to everyone these days, which is mostly online. So all we really have is Lockheed Martin, and a lot of people don't know about it. FSX is not on shelves anymore. So if there is anyone who's online who's just Googling and hoping to come across something that has anything to do with flight simulation, and they come across it, then I feel like I've done something to sort of just help out. And I greatly respect the work, you, Ken, and Tim, the hard work that you guys put into your developments, and there's clearly a lot of passion involved, and it clearly shows through the work. So I just want to say thank you for doing, even though you love it, because at the end of the day, it's not for money, right? So you guys could build it and say, hey, I'll share it with you, Ken, I'll share it with you, Tim, and we won't give it to anyone else, and we'll enjoy it. So I appreciate you sharing it with all of us.
How many people like yourself, their job is doing something that they love? It doesn't get much better than that.
You know what they say, if you do what you love, then you'll never work a day in your life. So
that's right.
Well,
still an old days, Seb.
Yeah, absolutely.
If people if people like products like this with a bit of an experience to it, back us up, grab a copy, share a screenshot. We'd love to see all your screenshots. That is one of the greatest things as a developer, to see other people posting pictures back of your scenery and having fun with it. So if you like what we're doing, give us a bit of support, and we will go much further with this in this sort of style of product as well, because it's what we like doing. So yeah, again, thank you to everyone.
All right, and then if the two of you just want to stay on with me for just a moment, we'll go ahead and end today's broadcast. Once again, everyone, thank you so much for joining us and spending the time and leaving your questions and comments. And please make sure to go out and grab a copy of this scenery. If you found anything here to be entertaining and look like a challenge, and if Papua New Guinea never registered on your radar before as an interesting place to visit, I think you have about 3 hours worth now to head over to the Flight Sim store, pick up your copy, and you certainly, if you were impressed with anything you saw today, I think you'll definitely be more impressed once you hop in your Twatter or whatever aircraft you enjoy and give it a try on your own, because I'm certainly having a lot of fun with it, and I'm holding my breath a lot in these approaches, and so that's a good thing. And hopefully by the time I've mastered these, Tim and Ken will be presenting us with previews from the next. Oh, I can only, the anticipation's killing me, but the next Pacific location. So once again, everyone, thanks for joining us. Ken, Tim, thank you so much as well.
Thank you.
Thank you, Andre.
And once again, for your daily news, visit airdailyx.net, and for the latest products from Orbx, fullterrain.com. Did I get that correct, guys?
You sounds pretty good.
Yes. Yeah, I wasn't listening.
Sorry. Was that wah 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 wah?
I was daydreaming about
the next thing. Oh gosh, the next grueling project, which of course is not, because you guys enjoy it. So once again, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us, and we will see you for the next broadcast. Take care, everyone, and enjoy the rest of your weekend.